All right. Hello. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm bringing you a brand new PowerPoint, this time about the EU's defense lack, standardization, training, and language barriers. Um, Pretty much a quick rundown of why I think the United States is lacking behind the United States in terms of defense capabilities. So while the European Union has made strides in collective security, it still lags behind the United States in defense capabilities. This disparity stems from several key factors, including lack of standardization in ammunition and training, compounded by language barriers that impede effective international cooperation. This paper will explore the weaknesses, drawing on data from the CIA World Factbook and Wikipedia. So, the lack of ammunition standardization, unlike the US, which benefits from a united military structure and procurement process, the EU's 27 member states operate largely independent industries. This results in a patchwork of weapon systems, crucially, a lack of standardized ammunition. This incompatibility creates logistical nightmares, hampers interoperability during joint operations, and increases costs due to smaller production runs and limited economies of scale. Evidence. While the CIA World Factbook doesn't directly address ammunition standardization, it highlights the fragmented nature of U.S. defense spending. The EU's combined defense expenditure is significant, but it's spread across numerous national programs, leading to duplication and inefficiency. Source CIA World Factbook Military Expenditures. Supporting argument. Wikipedia's article on the common security and defense policy notes ongoing efforts to harmonize military capabilities, but acknowledges the slow process due to the national sovereignty concerns and competing industrial interests. So source Wikipedia, common security and defense policy. Okay, so number two, the lack of standardized training and international training. Beyond equipment, effective defense relies heavily on well-trained personnel. The EU faces challenges in this area as well, stemming from the lack of a standardized training protocols and limited international training opportunities. Different member states employ varying doctrines, procedures, and even terminology, making it difficult for troops to operate seamlessly together. Furthermore, language barriers often hinder effective communication and coordination during joint exercises and deployments. Again, the evidence, the CIA World Factbook provides data on military personnel for each EU member state, highlighting the diversity in force structures and training backgrounds. Source CIA World Factbook Military Personnel. Supporting argument. Wikipedia's article on the European Defence Agency, EDA, mentions initiatives aimed at fostering cooperation in training and education, but these efforts are often hampered by national sensitivities and budgetary constraints. Sources: the Wikipedia European Defence Agency. Language barriers. The EU's linguistic diversity, while a testament to its rich cultural heritage, poses a significant challenge for military cooperation. Language barriers impede communication, slow down decision-making, and can even jeopardize mission success. While English is often used as a lingua franca, proficiency levels vary, and reliance on interpreters can introduce delays and potential misunderstandings. Evidence. The CIA World Factbook lists the official language of each EU member state, showcasing the linguistic complexity of the bloc. So the source is the CIA World Factbook languages. The supporting argument. Various articles and reports on EU defense cooperation highlight language barriers as a persistent challenge. Further research is recommended to find specific examples from academic journals or defense publications. I don't even feel like that's even necessary. Anyone who knows about the European Union knows it compromises a pretty significant variety of countries. You have 27 different countries, that's 27 different languages, and they need to compromise, in order to become stronger militarily speaking. Because in terms of going into the future, that's not really the way to go about a European army, but I'll continue on that a little bit later. So my conclusion, the EU's defense capabilities lag behind those of the US due to a lack of standardization in ammunition training, coupled with significant language barriers. While efforts are underway to to address these issues, progress remains slow. Overcoming these challenges is crucial for the EU to develop a more cohesive and effective defense posture capable of addressing evolving security threats. Continued investment in standardization, joint training initiatives, and language training programs will be essential to bridge the gap with the US and ensure a more secure future for the European Union. Future research. So this is what I wanted to talk about before. Explore the NATO Standardization Agreement, STANAG, and its impact on the interoperability within the alliance. So I'm going to have a quick overview of STANAG. STANAG stands for Standardization Agreement, which is a series of agreements used by NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, members countries to ensure that military equipment, procedures, and terminology are consistent and interoperable across the alliance. The further purpose of these agreements is to facilitate cooperation and joint operations among NATO forces. I think STANAG is a really good thing for the NATO alliance and the European Union as a military alliance as a whole. We kind of need more STANAGization, if you will. So the purpose and the scope, interoperability. The primary goal of STANAGs is to achieve interoperability. This means that different national military forces can operate together seamlessly using common or compatible equipment, communication systems, and procedures. Standardization. By setting common standards, STANAGs help in reducing redundancy, improving efficiency, and ensuring that equipment from one country can be used, maintained, or supported by another. Operational effectiveness. Common standards enhance the effectiveness of NATO operations by allowing for better cooperation, coordination, faster deployment, and mutual support. Key areas covered by STANAGs. So, equipment specifications for military hardware like ammunition, weapons, communication devices, etc. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, common methods for conducting military operations from basic infantry tactics to complex joint operations. Terminology, standardized language and terminology to avoid misunderstandings during multinational operations. Logistics, procedures for supply, maintenance, and transport to ensure that allied forces can support each other logistically. Communication, protocols and systems for secure and effective communication between units and nations. Examples of STANAG. STANAG 5469 deals with the levels of protection for occupants of logistic and light armored vehicles against kinetic energy, artillery, and IED threats. STANAG 2920 defines the ballistic test method for personal armor materials and combat clothing. STANAG 4172 introduces the 5.56 x 45mm NATO round as a standard small arms ammunition for NATO forces. STANAG 1059 provides NATO distinguishing letters for use by provides national distinguishing letters for use by NATO forces. Think of US for the United States, or FR for France, or G for Germany, and so on and so forth. Development and implementation. Drafting. A STANAG begins as a draft proposed by one or more NATO nations or NATO bodies themselves. Ratification. Once drafted, it must be ratified by member nations. Each nation has its own process for this, often involving military or governmental review. Implementation. After ratifications, nations implement the standards into their national military doctrine, training, and equipment procedure. And procurement. Promulgation. The agreed standards are then published and distributed among NATO members. Challenges. Adoption. Not all nations adopt STANAGs, and even when adopted, the level of implementation can vary. Obsolescence. Military technologies evolves rapidly, which means STANAGs must be regularly updated or risk becoming obsolete. Sovereignty. Countries sometimes resist adopting certain standards due to national defense industry's interest or sovereignty concerns. Part of the reason why I used Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz as pictures as part of the challenges overview is if you realistically think about it, the French and the Germans never being able to see eye to eye causes a lot of problems for STANAG adoption in general, because generally the Germans like to do things their own way, the French like to do things their own way. Then there's other smaller countries that want to do things their own way: Spain, Italy, Greece, Poland, Sweden, and this causes a lot of fragmentation. Whereas even though there might be fragmentation in regards to certain things, like let's say, um, every country wanting their own flag on their uniform, there is things where you can see eye to eye as nations, where you can just go, okay, you know what, fuck it, France. You can do our uniforms, but as long as you let us Germans walk in our boots or something. And you can apply the same logic vice versa. So the Germans can tell the French, like, hey, look, the Audi RS6 is way nicer than the Renault Sport or whatever, than a Renault RS. So we're definitely making armored vehicles and transport vehicles or something. And then the French go, okay, well, we already have an aircraft carrier, so you're going to have to let us handle aircraft carrier development. And also in these fields, for instance, you can have them both agree that, let's say, they like everyone can keep using their own guns, but one thing you all agree on is you use the same type of magazine and the same types of ammunitions for, let's say, a certain variety of weapons. So all pistols have the same magazines, all rifles have the same magazines, all artillery weapons are like, or at least the ammunition that's being used for artillery weapons is, designed by NATO as a whole. Or you make sure that you standardize all anti-aircraft small arms weapons and make sure it's all the same caliber. You make sure that even if you have different missile systems, you at least use similar missile mounts. Or make sure that when missiles are mounted to certain vehicles, that you simply require by law that all these missile mounts become the same. And then countries can even use, let's say, different missiles designed by different countries because the mounts are the same. And you can apply this same logic to things like radar and optics and such. For instance, anyone who's interested in weapons will know that there's a Picatinny rail on most modern rifles, so you can use your own scopes and accessories and put them on the rifle, and kind of customize it as you see fit. So, conclusion: a new binding NATO resolution for more STANAGs in areas such as missile mounts, artillery tank shells, small arms ammunitions, and uniforms would greatly contribute to the strength of the alliance. Standardization would enhance interoperability, efficiency, readiness, and innovation, ultimately enabling NATO to respond more effectively to emerging threats. While implementation would require cooperation, investment, and effort, the benefits would be significant, and the alliance will be stronger and more effective as a result. Recommendations: to move forward, NATO should conduct a thorough review of existing STANAGs to identify areas where new agreements are needed. Establish a working group to develop new STANAGs in priority areas. Engage with industry partners to develop and produce standardized equipment and ammunition. Provide training and education programs to ensure member countries can effectively use standardized equipment and procedures. By taking these steps, NATO can harness the power of standardization and to enhance its strength and effectiveness, ultimately contributing to a safer and more secure world. Establishing a multinational panel for new STANAG revisions. To ensure that the new STANAG revisions are effective and meet the needs of all NATO member countries, it's essential to establish a multinational panel that includes representatives from various nations. This panel will provide a platform for countries to contribute to the development of new STANAGs, ensuring that everyone's interests are represented and that the final product is comprehensive as and an effective standard. Position of the panel. The panel should include representatives from a diverse group of NATO member countries, including major contributors, countries that contribute significantly to NATO's military operations and have strong interest in the development of new STANAGs. Small and medium-sized countries, countries that may not have the same level of military resources as larger countries, but still have valuable expertise and perspectives to contribute. countries with specialized expertise. Countries with specialized knowledge or expertise in specific areas such as artillery or missile system. Countries with diverse operational experience. Countries with diverse with experience in different operational environments such as desert, jungle, or urban warfare. Panel structure. The panel should be structured to ensure effective communication, collaboration, and decision making. A suggested structure includes a chairperson, a neutral chairperson to lead the panel and ensure that discussions remain focused and productive. Preferably, this chairperson should rotate between all participating nations. Working groups, smaller working groups to focus on specific areas such as artillery or small arms ammunition. Task force leaders for each working group to coordinate effort that tasks are completed on time. Panel responsibilities. The panel's responsibilities include reviewing existing stay acts, reviewing current stay acts to identify areas that require revision or updating over time. Developing new stay acts. Developing new stay acts that address emerging threats and technological achievements and advancements. Providing input and feedback. Providing input and feedback on draft state acts to ensure that they meet the needs of all member countries. Reaching consensus. Reaching consensus on final state act revisions and recommendations. Communication and collaboration tools. To facilitate effective communication and collaboration among panel members, the following tools can be used. A secure online platform for sharing documents, collaborating on drafts, and communicating with panel members. Regular meetings, either in person or virtual, to discuss progress, provide updates, and address any challenges or concerns. Collaboration software such as Slack or Trello to facilitate communication and task management. Doesn't necessarily need to be those, but ensuring inclusive participation. So, to ensure that all panel members can contribute effectively, consider the following: language support, providing language support such as translation services or interpreters to facilitate communication among panel members who may not speak the same language. Cultural sensitivity, being sensitive to cultural differences and ensuring that the panel's work is culturally aware and inclusive. Empowering smaller countries to contribute to the panel's work and ensuring that their voices are heard. Example of a multinational panel for new stay act revisions. Here's an example of a multinational panel for stay act revisions. Chairperson, a representative from the United Kingdom. Working groups, artillery led by a representative from the United States. Small arms and ammunition led by a representative from France. Missile systems led by representatives from Germany. Task force leaders, United States leading the task force on artillery, France leading the task force on small arms ammunition, Germany leading the task force on missile systems. Panel members, the United Kingdom, the United States, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Canada, and Australia. So next, which is I think smart for the European to sort of get an edge or at least become somewhat comparable to the United States. So the main weakness in the European Union lies in that it's essentially a federalized state and it's not likely to gain a federalized government. The European Union is an attempt at this, but so far, in my opinion, it has proved inadequate and insufficient to the challenges of the time. However, in order to modernize their military, as in the European Union's military, the best thing to do would unilaterally, all of us, if we start a united foreign legion, meaning the European Union starts its own foreign legion after sort of the French example, where everyone from any nation is welcome, but within the framework of the EU, and have multiple European countries work together on a foreign legion. To this end, I going a little bit in depth onto this situation. So, establishing a European Foreign Legion, expanding on the French Foreign Legion principle. The French Foreign Legion has been a renowned and respected institution for over 2 centuries, attracting soldiers from diverse backgrounds, nationalities to serve France. Building on this concept, the European Union can create a European Foreign Legion, a multinational force that embodies the values of unity, diversity, and cooperation. By adopting Latin as the main language, the EU can leverage the benefits of a neutral debt language to foster a unique identity and facilitate communication among soldiers from different countries. The French Foreign Legion principle. The French Foreign Legion was founded in 1831 to provide a way for foreigners to serve in the French military. The Legion's core principles include neutrality. Soldiers are not required to renounce their nationality, and their country of origin is not a factor in their enlistment. Integration. Soldiers are integrated into the Legion's culture and values regardless of their background. Equality. Soldiers are treated equally regardless of their nationality, social status, or education. Rationale for a European Foreign Legion. Integration and unity. An EU Foreign Legion could symbolize European unity, offering a military framework where citizens from different EU countries can serve together, promoting a sense of European identity. Foreign policy tool. Such a force could be deployed in peacekeeping, humanitarian, or stabilization missions where a unified EU response is desirable, potentially under the banner of the Common Security and Defense Policy, CSPD. Diversity and inclusion. Like the French Foreign Legion, it could recruit from both within and outside the EU, fostering diversity while also serving as an integration mechanism for immigrants. The European Foreign Legion concept. The European Foreign Legion would build on these principles with the following adaptations. EU citizenships. Soldiers would be required to hold EU citizenship or be eligible for EU citizenship. I would add in as a caveat that if you decide to join the European Foreign Legion, you can get European citizenship, or have it be a pathway to it. So let's say there's people all over Europe that have problems gaining citizenship, even though they've lived there for a long time. Let's say the European Foreign Legion framework could allow them to actually attain it regardless of any court proceedings by them volunteering to join and serve for a predetermined amount of time. Latin as the main language. Latin would be the official language of the Legion used for communication, training, and operations. This is very beneficial as Latin is a dead language, and other than Italy and the Pope probably being super stoked that Latin would be the main language, I don't really think any European country would be happy with it, which is precisely why we should use it, because that way France and Germany can kind of agree that neither of their language became like the lingua franca of the European Foreign Legion, and the fact that it's Latin is kind of like a nice cultural touch as well. Harkening back to the Roman legions as depicted here. Also, the Roman legions were using a lot of auxilia forces back in the day, which were troops from various subject countries to the Roman Empire, which filled a lot of supporting roles. So to that end, it's a nice harkening back to older times as well. European values. The Legion would be founded on European values such as democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Benefits of Latin as the main language. Choosing Latin as the main language of the European Foreign Legions offers several advantages. Neutrality. Latin is a dead language, not spoken as a native language in any EU country, making it a neutral choice that does not favor any particular nation. Universality. Latin is the ancestor of many European languages, making it easier for soldiers to learn and understand. Unique identity. Using Latin as the main language would create a distinct identity for the European Foreign Legion, setting it apart from national armies. Cultural significance. Latin is a symbol of European cultural heritage, reflecting the EU's shared history and values. So again, why Latin? Neutrality. It's a dead language. It doesn't favor any European state, thus promoting linguistic neutrality. Historical precedent. Latin was the lingua franca of educated Europe for centuries, echoing back to the Roman Empire, which could symbolically connect to the idea of a united Europe. Educational value. Learning Latin could have educational benefit, promoting classical education and understanding of many European languages which evolved from Latin. Implementation step. Language training. Establish intensive Latin language training for recruits. This would be akin to the language training in the French Foreign Legion, but would require a specialized curriculum to teach conversational and military use Latin. Cultural integration. Use Latin not just as a language, but as part of the Legion's culture, including mottos, commands, and perhaps even ceremonies to foster a unique identity. Operational structure. Model the structure after the French Foreign Legion with adjustments to fit to the EU strategic goals. This includes defining the command structure, recruitment policies, and areas of operation. Legal framework. Develop a legal framework within EU law for the creation and operation of this force, addressing various issues like citizenship, service terms, and the legal status of legionnaires. Recruitment. Open recruitment to EU citizens and potentially non-EU nationals with criteria that ensure a mix of skills, background, and languages, all learning Latin as part of their induction. Training. Beyond language, training would focus on creating a highly skilled and versatile force capable of various operations from combat to disaster relief. Challenges and considerations. Practicality. Latin, while neutral, is non-spoken by any modern population, which could complicate training and operational communication. Modern military technology would need to be translated or adapted into Latin. Recruitment. Attracting recruits might be challenging due to the requirement to learn a complex dead language. Cultural resistance. Some might see this as an unnecessarily or overly symbolic gesture, potentially facing resistance from member states or citizens who prefer practical solutions over symbolic ones. Cost. The cost of implementing such a program, including language training, could be high. That being said, would be extremely cool reviving another dead language akin to what Israel did for Hebrew. It would be nice if the European Union at least tries to somewhat preserve Latin, not just from a cultural standpoint, but also from a historical point of view. It would be really cool if all European soldiers have this bond that they all had to learn Latin. So let's say you're a Polish soldier going out in Spain. You speak Latin to one of your soldier buddies. There's a different soldier that overhears you. He's, let's say, Spanish. And then he starts speaking to you in Latin, like, hey, bro, where did you say, blah, blah, blah. It'd be really cool. Culturally speaking, Latin is also the language used for medicine. So it will make the barrier of entry for former military personnel to do occupations like, let's say, go on to study medicine. It makes that jump a little bit smaller as well. Potential benefits. Symbolic unity. It would serve as a powerful symbol of European unity and shared history. Operational independence. A force with its own unique language could operate with a degree of independence and secrecy, given that the rarity of Latin speakers. Soft power. This could enhance the EU soft power by showcasing its commitment to its historical roots and cultural depth. By establishing a European Foreign Legion with Latin as the main language, the EU can create a unique and powerful symbol of unity, diversion, and cooperation, while promoting a shared European identity and cultural heritage. So that's the end of this video. I want to stress that the starting of a European French Foreign Legion or a European-style French Foreign Legion would actually greatly contribute to the decreasing of the cost to actually operate a military force for the European Union as a whole. The main thing that would need to happen, though, is that each country, obviously, would sort of need to be entitled to a certain amount of troops, obviously based on their population that they could still use for their own need. So the European Foreign Legion would have to sort of make a certain number of troops available for each NATO nation. Perhaps I want to get into this topic a little bit more on a little bit more depth as well, because it's been a really interesting topic for me to talk about. Anyways, I hope you can give me a like, a subscribe. This is actually a subject I'm pretty passionate about. Please leave a like and or a comment. All right. Bye-bye.